I guess I'll record from here on. So yeah, the certbot issue, you may have had trouble installing snapd. So when you come down and it tells step 2 to install snapd and you open up the snapd site, following the instructions for CentOS, the EPL release was probably already added for your system. And you probably scrolled down here, and if this command right here didn't run, yum install snapd, if it gave an error such as you're missing a SE Linux package and none of the providers can install it, then they have a workaround if you happen to run into that issue. And there's a continuous release CR. So if you go to that site, and it talks all about the issues and stuff and tells you for CentOS 7 that you could run that command right there, yum config manager enable CR, and then go back to this and try to rerun the install snapd. It should fix the problem. And basically, if they do an update, it takes a while for all the software to be compiled and uploaded. So sometimes one component can get uploaded before another component, and there'll be several hours to a day or so before both pieces get updated and on the update site. And that's why you might run into this problem here. And enabling the continuous release repository lets you get past this error and continue installing certbot onto your system. So you should be able to run the install and enable the systemd, create the symbolic link. Beyond that portion, once you've finished and you've gone in, you've finished setting up snapd, and you've installed the certbot, made the symbolic link, and before you run step 7, many of you went to the Azure portal. On the Azure portal for your virtual machine, I hope that you went and set up a DNS name for yourself right there.
There, I resubmitted it. I don't know if the screenshot came in or not. I added the file to it, but...
Okay. If you didn't set the DNS name up, there was a creation there, and you just type a name, hit enter, look for a green checkbox after you hit enter, and click the save button. Save button at the top of the screen, and that creates your domain name information. Once that's done, you could go back to the overview. You copy your DNS name, and here's a part that if you didn't go into your certbot config in PuTTY, not certbot, engine configuration file in PuTTY,
Mine's up now, by the way.
So sudo-i, if you didn't go into the etc Nginx directory and edit the Nginx config file, you might have had some issues with setting up certbot on the last step. the key with the Nginx is the server name line right there would simply be an underscore semicolon. You would have needed to edit this file and change the underscore and paste your domain name in that config file. And then the last step of the certbot running certbot -- nginx would have picked up, asked you to put an email address in, basically accept some defaults, and it would have had everything configured. A lot of y'all got that going and working. So that was pretty good. So at the beginning of class here, I don't think that we fully got our updater working. So I want you to be into your Azure portal. And on Friday, we went in and we're playing around with the Azure host and virtual machine update management portal and working with the update manager in Azure. So log into your Azure and go to your virtual machine. Or that you on the left side, you have your settings and your operations, monitoring, automation, and stuff like that. So we're looking for operations and guest and host updates. So this is the Azure portal dashboard, then go to your virtual machine. And then the left scroll, find operations and the guest and host updates. So we set that up on Friday, but I don't think we fully got it configured correctly. If you click on guest and host updates, you'll have the button, go to update management, that you can click on the right side here. And it should take us to this site. You probably have 3 updates to run. And I have an error. This had to deal with snapd and snapd SE Linux. You likely don't have an error because you may not have set up a deployment schedule correctly and told it to deploy the updates. So I'm going to look at my history and see if I can read up why I had a failure. Error, error, error. Seems like it's cutting off some of my messages here. So this here is what was tried to run. So what I'm seeing in this list is the availability of the SC Linux policy. So that error was that snapd needing that continuous release to be enabled. I think that I would just let this sit here and wait until that it gets pushed to the main server. I think I'm going to wait till Wednesday anyway and see if any issues arise because of that. But for the rest of you, under update management, you probably don't have an error. It's probably never tried to run. So what I want you to do on this screen is click on schedule update deployment. On the schedule update deployment, give it a name. On the include and exclude, you actually do have to, it said there's not a star here, it's an optional, but it's really required. You do have to include something to install. So if you click on the include exclude updates, it comes up to this page. A little checkbox beside package name, and enter the package name and simply put an asterisk. And that should be on the include site, and click OK. That means install everything. Patch everything that shows up that says it needs to be patched. Otherwise, it won't try to patch anything.
So the only thing we need to change is the packages there and put the star.
Yep. I'll checkbox, put the star, and hit OK. So that's what we missed on Friday. We forgot to include to tell it to install packages. We'll look here at Talon. It's this is all green and ready, but it's not. If he clicks on deployment schedules, click under deployment schedules there, Talon. No updates deployments currently appear because, well, there's nothing there. So that's where you schedule your update deployment. In the calendar link up there. Yeah. Enter a name and click the include exclude. Click the checkbox and put an asterisk. And then click OK at the bottom. That was a star, right? And not a dash?
No, it was a dash.
Oh yeah, dash doesn't work.
Oh, okay. I kind of
That'd be the asterisk.
Asterisk.
Not a dash.
All right.
You'll need to delete that, I think, or well, maybe, yeah. Yeah. And put an asterisk and put a little checkbox there for package names. Yeah. Now on the schedule, you'll want to set it at reoccurring. And then click OK. You also get to choose a maintenance window. This is what you'd have to broadcast out to users that we have a 2-hour maintenance window. from 2 o'clock, and that time the system has the possibility of being rebooted. I think Windows auto reboots after patches because, well, their Windows are used to having reboot after patches, even though you don't have to do that on most Linux distros. It says reboot if required. Yep. So you just click OK. Windows reboots no matter what, I believe. And that should pop up and show that you have a patch schedule set to run.
Easy. Me and Jeremiah did that exact same thing on Friday, but I don't know if me and him did the asterisk or not.
Yeah, that's why it didn't create on Friday, because it you didn't specify what to update. So we had to add the asterisk in.
So mine's giving a error saying it can't be enabled. The update management solution cannot be enabled.
Let's see, can you share your screen? So it's being provisioned right now. So the virtual machine extension is being provisioned. When that completes, we can determine if the solution is enabled. So that can take a little while. So if you're just enabling that, we enabled it Friday. And if your subscription expired, it may have taken that all, deleted it, and then recreating it now or something, but that take up to 15 minutes or so.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you can stop sharing your screen, and it's just going to take a little while before you can do your share. So yeah, I'm going to leave mine, and like I said, I had an error. Yours is going to error out probably after break too. It may even want to reboot your virtual machine in the middle of you trying to work on it, but I'm hoping on Wednesday we can revisit and check this patch deployment out, and maybe it'll have our systems patched. Maybe the snapd will be fully updated.
I have no idea where my update management is. I remember doing it. I just can't find it.
You got to click on your virtual machine. Yeah, Williams.
Yeah.
And then it's over there on the left side. Scroll down under operations.
Is it this one right here?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm sorry that I suffer from pure blindness. So I need to add an asterisk.
Yeah, go to deployment schedules and see if you've got a deployment or not.
Oh crap, my bad. You said deployment schedule.
Yep. Deployment schedules. So you don't have deployment schedule. So yeah, you have to click schedule deployment. You got to give it a name. And then you got to click on the exclude button. And you got to click an asterisk there and put a checkbox for package names.
It's like there.
Yeah. And then click OK. And then click a schedule. And all you have to do on schedule is basically click reoccurring. Why is your time zone not set? That's weird.
I have no idea.
No items available. Okay, I thought mine was filled in. Guess not. Just click create.
Yours is probably in there. I probably just forgot to click something.
Yeah, now to level or 158. It will try to patch your system.
All right.
Okay, so while we're waiting for it to try to patch and get some errors, are you using Google Chrome at your house? Hopefully,
Who?
yes. Can you open a new tab and go to the ASUB website? So we're wanting to look at with using Google Chrome and going to the ASUB website, basically following stuff here in test out. Chapter 8. Some of Chapter 8 talks about internet browsers. They talk about Internet Explorer, which Microsoft is now getting rid of. But, you know, they talk about cache and pop-up blockers and other security stuff. Most people are using Chrome nowadays instead of Internet Explorer. And then if they are using a Microsoft product, they're likely using Edge, the newer Chromium version of Edge. I wanted to show you something. If you're on Google Chrome at home and you go to the ASUB website, look at your title bar.
Not secure.
Says it's not secure.
I bet to
so
say
what are we
I've
gonna do,
noticed
scan
that
it?
for about a year, and I'm
You see not secure, but what about
shame.
what other information do you see? Is your address bar different than mine?
There's not like a .com or a .org at the very end of the edu.
It says not secure. There's the triangle. It says http:// instead of https. This is the cool.
So yours actually says HTTP? Is anybody missing the www?
Mine has www, but not HTTP.
Mine
So
is just asub.edu.
Yeah, mine is too.
some of you just have asub.edu. Some of you just had www. You don't see the HTTP on there. Does anybody see the HTTP on yours?
I don't see HTTP on mine. Mine just says asub.edu.
But it does say not secure.
Yeah,
So I guess that's kind of a flag, but you know, one thing is FTP and other sites are dated and should go away and not be around anymore, but everything should be running HTTP for security purposes. But how do you know if you're going to HTTP or FTP or something else if it's hiding it from you? I've even heard that Google may one day, when you start clicking on different links, that they may not even show the directory paths and stuff that you're going to. That they may just show the site name at the top. I'm thinking that's not very cool. I didn't like that when all of a sudden I couldn't see my full URL.
I think I actually ran into that quite a few times. Whenever I'm doing stuff on my local server system and I'm browsing the internet on it, and I go to certain sites, it'll just display the whatever it is .com. It will not display the rest of it unless I click on it.
Yep. Is that on Chrome?
Yes, it's annoying.
Yeah. So that is starting to creep in there because, well, they figure the end users, and well, most of them, they never even paid attention to what's being changed up there at the top. They're
Maybe
not,
you might be able to turn it off through like a Chrome flag or something. Maybe we should go look in there.
so, well, you notice
Flags.
mine is, mine's visible. I noticed it really quick. Made me quite angry. They changed it. Like, well, wait a second. I want to see everything. So web browsers have extensions. Some of the extensions that I like to load into my Chrome is suspicious site reporter. So if you just Google suspicious site reporter, Google has an extension by Google that you can install into your Chrome browser. Once that is installed, you'll notice that your URL now becomes completely visible. As you're browsing the web, you do have the option to report sites that seem like that they're suspicious. You can just send a report. It sends a screenshot. You could then send them the HTML code, the URL, whatever. Of course, I'm not going to submit that their Chrome web store looks suspicious, but its main purpose really is so you can see the full URL at the top. Nothing is hidden. I really like that extension, and I don't like to not have it installed on my Chrome because I like to see the whole entire URL. Being able to see the entire URL is something out here at the very end. That's kind of like the bad story. Do you remember we had like an action equals? This has an HL equals, and it's English. I could probably find another code for another foreign language and type that in here and hit enter, and it would render this site in a foreign language. Most likely. Of course, I don't want to right now, but cool benefits of suspicious site reporter. And I bet some of you is going to remember that and install that on all your Google Chromes. Other things I like to install into Chrome or Firefox or any browser for that matter is an ad blocker program, AdBlock Plus. You will run into sites that you won't be able to view unless you have ads enabled. You'll run into other sites where it will try to block things that look like ads that aren't. They're actually part of the site, and you'll have to turn it off for it to work. I've been to different sites like doctor sites where they're wanting to do telemedicine and stuff now, and components on there were widgets that were supposed to work. I had to turn ad blocker off for sites like that. Any the Azure portal, I believe on the Azure portal. Now I've got ads on that one, but not had much issue. I run into a few sites. Like why is there an ad block on BB? So if you're in Canvas and it says there's an ad blocking, it may be a part of. I'm going to turn that off. Maybe like some type of widget here that was really important for me to see that's been hiding the whole time. But it's real easy with AdBlock Plus. Is hit a little slider if you don't want it to be blocking ads on a particular site. Sites that you don't want it to block ads on would be probably your banking site that you log into, Canvas, school accounts and stuff that you log into, because it may accidentally block components of the web page that aren't actually ads. And the other thing I like to add besides Suspicious Site Reporter, AdBlock Plus, another cool benefit of AdBlock Plus, well, we see 368,000 ads in total have been blocked. That's a lot of bandwidth saved, and it's a lot of issues with cross-site scripting that we played with that could potentially have been blocked because of this nice tool. But the other thing is Autoplay. That's the one I think that's had more problems than any of them when I go to doctor sites or anything, telemedicine and stuff like that, that I've had to turn this off. Otherwise, widgets and stuff on the screen won't run and work. But autoplay, if there's any type of YouTube videos and things that you just go look at a website and all of a sudden music starts playing in the background and you don't know where it's coming from. Have you ever done that? Like open up a bunch of different tabs trying to research something and all of a sudden you start hearing an advertisement play in the background and you don't know which website is playing it or where on the web page the audio is coming from?
Yeah, there should be like a logo on the top of one of the tabs that is like a sound logo, and that will kind of tell you where the sound is coming from with whichever website tab you're on. That's the only way to find it through that. Now with the sound on that website exactly, I don't know.
Yeah, I have actually seen that a couple of times that it would be like the speaker icon flashing, but I've seen other browsers that would not have that. So in my different browsers, I go in, Firefox has a custom setting that you have to go into, like about config, and turn off autoplay and a couple of settings in there. But Google Chrome has a autoplay blocker. It says for Flash, but it also HTML5 and Flash media files. I've got that installed and it runs everywhere. But it's the ones I've had like the biggest trouble with. If I had to go in and do any type of telemedicine with the webcam and stuff, that it would block the webcam from working, or maybe the chat from working or something like that, because it was reading it as a Flash or an HTML5 media for some reason. But I do like the block autoplay of videos. Videos take a lot of bandwidth. And if you're in a meeting and somebody in the meeting's talking, you try to go research what they're talking, and all of a sudden there's a Pepto-Bismol commercial that starts blasting out through your speakers. Heartburn, indigestion, diarrhea right in the middle of a meeting. You don't want those that advertisement to be yelled out. They may think you're being offensive or something to them. So having this autoplay blocker saves lots of bandwidth, and also I don't have just random weird commercials start to play in the background. So those three extensions are pretty nice extensions that I've had added. Let's see, is there anything else? Suspicious site reporter, autoplay stopper, and adblock plus. Yeah, those are the main ones that I add in. Of course, Google Chrome automatically, Adobe Acrobat automatically puts in a plugin. Looks like Cisco WebEx added an extension into Chrome because it's been used in the past. Does anybody else do anything for web browser security that I've not mentioned?
There is a website that like if a particular person is trying to get you to access a website to watch a webcam, that you can scan that website for vulnerabilities and to see if it's a phishing website, which probably also relates to the suspicious site reporter. But the website I found, it actually goes through like multiple different like companies and stuff that scans it and tells you if it's all right or not, if they see anything malicious.
Yeah, Virus Total does that. If you remember, we scanned a file. You can also scan URL. asub.edu. So yes, we checked out asub.edu and it's clean. That's a great site that you might even like help desk or something like that train employees if they're getting a link in an email and they're not too sure if that link's malicious or not. Then you might click a site like that.
I was using urlvoid.com. You just kind of paste, and it kind of does exactly what that is, but it's just for URLs. It's not for like files and stuff. But
yeah, there's more. What was that site again? Put it in chat. Type the link in chat for us. I'm trying to think of a site that may have some malicious stuff on it.
I posted the link into the chat. Oh, you got it.
So website reputation checker. I'm going to check that site against VirusTotal and make sure that it's not a bad thing. Cool. Well, how about check VirusTotal against URL reputation checker? And it says, hey, they're safe. Okay, that was good. Suspicious URL. There's always suspicious URLs. So two web places that you could, if you do get a weird one in email, go paste it. Another problem when you get stuff in email. Let me show you something else that can be done. So you get an email, and there's a link in there for you to click. So I'll show you this real quick. I'm going to edit my website that I created. Inside the paragraph tag, I'm going to create an href equals quote. And oh lordy, that is, what in the heck? Okay, that is one massive. That's not exactly what I wanted to get a hold of. That URL location is not correct. Let me go back in and redo that. Paragraph tag, close paragraph tag, a reference tag. I'm going to create a href tag and write in www.asub.edu, but I'm going to point it at picture. Yeah, that picture right there. And that's the URL that I want. So notice href goes to a website from firstresponseco.uk, but I've typed in between the opening and closing a tag www.asub.edu. So here's some security snafus that you can run into. And hold on. All right, so that was a student. Okay, so where's my website link again? So I got my website. And what I wanted to show is, you see that link right there? What's it look like I'm going to go to? ASUB website. Where is it going to go when I click on it?
Picture.
And go to the picture. So things coming into email, you got some issues. I typically don't like to click into email. I like to either open up a tab and manually type it in, or copy the text and paste and go to it. That works, but if I click it in email, it doesn't take me where that I thought it was going to take me. It takes me to some weird site. And it might actually infect my computer. Well, they probably won't tell you you've been cloned, but they might. You just get infected without knowing it. So I could have hidden one of my Metasploit links with that, and clicking a link, and just Metasploit could have infected the browser and taken control. And somebody sitting somewhere in a basement watched a little red icon with lightning bolts pop on their screen in the Metasploit framework and go, ha, caught another machine. Just by people clicking on an email link that looks like it's going to take them to ASUB website.
You could always do clicking links through a virtual machine instead of off of your original operating system, in case something is malicious and they try to install programs and stuff. It would go on the virtual machine and not your actual computer.
Yeah, running a VM, that sandboxes the browser, but anything that comes in email, I'm really, really leery of. I like to mouse over it and see if I can see, if I mouse over there, it shows me at the bottom of the screen that it's going to First Response Co. UK instead of asub.edu. Or I like to manually just open up another browser window and manually type in the link that I see from email instead of trying to click on it. Of course, if I'm on a site and I just register for the site and then it pops in and says an email has been sent with a link for you to click to finish authorizing your site, and you go look at your email and there's an email from that company, I mean, that's pretty safe right there. It's the emails that come in unsolicited. And you're like, wait a second, why is this being sent to me? And those are the ones where you got to be really leery with. And there's a bunch of in training. When you go work for companies and you're in the IT staff or IT security staff, that's what you're going to have to figure out how to do, is train your employees about all those nuances and even new, you know, once enough people are trained well not to click links, they're going to come up with a different social engineering way to get around. There's always going to have training over and over and over again. Let's take a break and we'll come back at 2:05.
My goodness.
Okay, I'm going to resume recording. And so we jump back into recording. Let's look at where did test out thing go? There's test out again. Okay, access control models. So here we go, access control model facts. You got mandatory access control and discretionary access control. In LAN class, you learned about the setting in Windows that turned on either mandatory access control or allowed discretionary access control. What setting was that and where? It's very, very quiet. Jared or Sean? Y'all there? Y'all know the answer?
What in NTFS permissions was it?
You're really close. You're in the right dialog box, but it's not NTFS permissions.
Is it share permissions?
Yep, it's on the share tab. So I've gotten closer than the first class gotten. What particular permission on what account changes from mandatory access control to discretionary access control? Y'all are not going to pass LAN 2. I see. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so we've gotten down, we found, said that it's the share permission. Particularly,
It's changing everyone away from full control, isn't it? Down to change.
so that is mandatory access control. And if you add full control rights, and that's the discretionary access control. So on the everyone group on share permissions, and that's where that you change it from discretionary to mandatory. Discretionary means if you create the file, then you have the rights to set whatever NTFS permissions you want on that file. Change doesn't allow that. The administrators already set the permissions on the folder, so when you create the file, you get rights to the file, and anybody else that's in the access control list gets whatever rights that's filtered down from the folder to that file. But the user can't change permissions, and they are locked out of the NTFS tab. It doesn't say NTFS tab, it's the permissions tab, but they're locked out of making changes under the permissions tab if you have it set at change. And that's why in LAN we studied for security purposes, and that you always give administrators full control, which gives them the discretion to make changes to the permissions, and everyone is set change, and that's mandating the permissions for them. That rolls right into this class, right into test out, right here. Mandatory access control. The user can't change. They're labeled, they've got read, write, or whatever on it. Discretionary access control. And it's based on the owner's discretion, what rights that file. It may be kind of hard reading their description here in the list in test out, but that's the case. Role-based access control, you'll deal with that when you get into virtualization class, system virtualization. Basically, think of it as groups. You don't assign rights to user accounts anywhere. You assign permissions to a particular group, and you add users to that group, and that's how they get rights. You cannot assign permissions or anything directly to a user in role-based access control. It's all controlled by labels and typically groups. Rule-based access control, firewalls. That's what you think of rule-based access control, firewall rules. And those are the main ones that you'll likely see asked on the Security Plus test: mandatory versus discretionary, role-based versus rule-based. Rule-based is pretty easy to describe. You'd always describe it as like access control list, firewalling rules. Have you heard of AAA and Cisco before? Not AA, but AAA. And what are the 3 A's? Can somebody list them, or at least list one of them?
I know the 2 of them are the A's right there on the side, authentication and authorization, I'm pretty sure.
Authentication, authorization,
Accounting.
Accounting. And Matthew York said accounting. Good. Authentication, authorization, and accounting. What is accounting?
Audit trails.
Audit trails. Yeah, very good. Where are they stored? What's another word can you think of? Where would I go look at the accounting information on my CentOS machine here?
The log files, maybe.
Yes. I go into the var log directory. Maybe look at my security log. Look at the end of it and see looks like Docker is checking, and Docker's checking every minute. It's really filled up. So if you're in LAN class and you set up Docker, your security log will probably be pretty large. Mine's 57 meg. It's grown by, I think, about 5 megabytes since the first class a couple hours ago. So Docker is every minute like logging into root and checking to make sure the containers are still accessible. So it keeps testing them continuously, and every time it does that, it has to log in. So that's making that log file quite excessive, but that's audit trails. You can scan when people log in, log out, maybe look for malicious stuff. It's very good. You keyed in on logs as accounting. Event viewer, Microsoft Event Viewer is Microsoft logging mechanism, syslog server, things like that is where your audit trails fall into play. Now the big trouble though is on the Security Plus exam, trying to figure out if the answer is authentication or authorization. And that's the biggest that I've seen students have issues with, or anybody new trying to read Security Plus certification exam questions. When is authentication the answer and when is authorization the answer? How are they different? And beginners think they're the exact same thing, but they're not. So what exactly is authentication? Just authentication by itself. What is that?
It's kind of like proving that you are who you say you are, kind of like passwords and stuff.
Right, proving who you are. Let's go out of computer field and let's just go to the comedy club in Little Rock. You're going into the comedy club and you've got a state driver's license. So it's a third party. It's got your picture on there and probably your signature. So they can third party identify you by, scanning the driver's license in the machine, validating that it's an Arkansas driver's license. And they can look at it and like, yep, that's you. Cool. We had like asymmetric authentication here. But they kick that person out the door. The next person comes in, they do the same thing. They authenticate who the person is. It's Arkansas State residents. This time they let the person in. The third person comes up and they scan the license and they let that person in, but they give an extra stamp on the back of their hand. So what's going on in that scenario? One person was kicked out, one was let in, one was let in with a stamp on their hand.
Different levels of authorization.
So yeah, different levels of authorization. Can anybody imagine why the one was kicked out?
Maybe because it was a private event and you weren't invited in.
He was underage, under 18. So he wasn't allowed in. Maybe because they had an R-rated show or something going on. They had 18 and older only into the comedy club. I'm not sure if that's the rule or not, but I think some shows do have age restrictions on them. And most shows would allow an 18-year-old to go view the show. However, so a 16-year-old got kicked away because he was 16 and he wasn't authorized to go into the building because he wasn't old enough, but he was able to authenticate himself with his driver's license and validated his age. Everything was fully validated, but that doesn't mean he was authorized. So he got turned away. His friend is 18, stands in, authorized in the same manner, but he's let in because, well, yeah, his age authorizes him to get into the comedy club. And then the 52-year-old goes and scans his license and he gets a stamp on the back of the hand. What does that authorize him to do?
Maybe elderly discount.
Well, y'all haven't partied too much.
Buy
No, we haven't.
alcohol.
Buy alcohol. There we go. There's Jeremiah. I knew there was somebody done bad, college student done bad. So we now know the wild partier in our group. We need to stay away from him. It's bad influence. I'm joking, Jeremiah. I don't know if you are or not. So yeah, the 52-year-old is able to buy alcohol and able to sit in the place. So there's 3 different authorization levels after being authenticated. All 3 authenticated with the same manner with the driver's license, but there's 3 different authorization levels. 1 was not allowed. 2 was allowed in. 3 was allowed in and to purchase liquor. It works the same way with computers. Think about logging into our server. If you try to log into the server as John Doe, what happens? What does Active Directory do?
Doesn't John Doe technically have full permissions, doesn't he?
John
I don't
Doe's a
remember.
regular user.
Oh, okay, yeah, then no, he's allowed in, but he doesn't have admin issue like ability.
Here's on the screen. So John Doe's a user in Active Directory. I typed his name incorrect. I typed his password incorrect. He was authenticated. I get the sign-in method you're trying to use isn't allowed. For more information, contact your network administrator. So John Doe fully authenticated. The Active Directory knows who he is. He wasn't authorized to log into the server. A regular user can only log into a Windows 10 machine. So that's what we're trying to get across. And maybe the bar scene, or maybe that's showing right there. Maybe enough when you're reading the questions that you'll remember, oh, there's a big difference between authentication and authorization, completely separate items. So a smart card with a PIN code, is that authentication or authorization? Did y'all hear that? There's a question. A smart card with a PIN code, is that authentication or authorization?
Authentication.
That'd be authentication. Using that smart card and PIN code to get $50 out of the ATM. The actual process of being able to get the $50 out of the ATM. That would be authorization. You had the money in the account. You've authenticated yourself. You're authorized to pull money out. So there'll be questions kind of similar to that on the Security Plus certification exam. And I believe, I hope, maybe I've got a good grasp of being able to answer what the difference is. Something action that you're able to do versus verifying who you are. And they talk about some stuff, single sign-on, biometric scanner, fingerprint scanning, stuff like that, smart card login, Duo, multi-factor authentication. Y'all have any questions on that part? Authentication, authorization, or accounting? Web application attacks, we've already covered that with cross-site scripting, SQL injection attacks. So there's a nice little section. You should be able to understand that when you go through the videos a lot more clearly since you've executed a few of those. And all the stuff down here, you've done LAN 1 and LAN 2. You've done the Linux class, so dealing with Linux users and groups, Linux security, group policy, all of that you've done in the other classes. Very critical for security, key points to it. So they shouldn't be too difficult, but you definitely need to refocus on these sections again when you get to them. So the last class spent a lot of time wanting to perfect their website a little bit better, but get pictures and stuff up there. So one of them was asking, and they were trying to get pictures into their website, and they're trying to upload them into the Azure cloud and into some type of media vault, and it wasn't working. They weren't sure what they were doing. So I showed the last class, if I wanted to get pictures into the Azure portal, and we're going to do this on Wednesday. We're going to look at SE Linux issues, trying to upload images for the web server to read. So if you're at home, or if you're at home, you'll need a WinSCP program. WIN, Secure Copy Protocol, WinSCP. You'll need to download that and have it installed. And you'll also need PuTTY for Wednesday, because we're going to deal with this. So WinSCP is the Secure Copy Protocol, the SSH protocol. So I would either SFTP or SCP, either of these two protocols, basically one and the same. You put in your Azure portal name, your username, you click Advanced, and the SSH authentication, you provide that key that you provided to PuTTY so that you can log into your Azure system. So I've already saved mine. The password's kind of mute because it will ask you to unlock the key every time you use it, but I've got my central cloud, azure.com. I put in student. I went to advanced and I attached that file. When I click login, it asking me for the imported key file password to open it up. And it shows me that the remote site home student, and that would allow me to do something like grab a picture, say this Halloween picture, and drag it over and drop it into the server. We'll need to be able to do that on Wednesday. So you need this program. You need to be able to make sure that you can log into your Azure. You may want to save the login. How did I save mine? But the authentication is very similar to the way PuTTY logs in to the Azure cloud. So we'll need to drag a couple of pictures over. I guess I might ought to look and see what the heck Halloween is before I show y'all on the screen. It's not going to preview it for me. Oh, well, this could be dangerous. Okay, cool. It's not dangerous. Halloween. So the last class, I showed them if you went into user share Nginx HTML doc, the same folder where that you had to go in and edit your index HTML file so you can modify it for yourself. You could go into that folder and you could copy from your home student the Halloween JPEG and Halloween JPEG right there. And you could reference that in your index file. Instead of having to use somebody else's URL. You would use an image tag, a source equal to the file name. And the image tag doesn't have a /image close, so it just ends with a / greater than. The / is optional, but for coding practice, it should be put in there. So that was pretty quick and easy. I had to drag the file from my desktop to the remote site to its home, the student home folder, drop to a putty command and copy it into the web server's root directory. And then I can reference it right in the HTML file just by the file name. Viewing my website. I have the graphic. I also have a broken graphic here. And that is what I'm wanting to mess with on Wednesday. And there's some extra security in Linux. Unix started out with the standard Unix permissions, which was for user, group, and other. And it was only a set of 3 permissions. And then they went on and added access control list onto the Unix file system, or that you could have ACLs just like the NTFS tab in Windows. You had to use different commands to view it. And then they went further and they added SE Linux, or that they added more metadata tags, security tags to files. And they would tag in there what context, based on context of what applications could read the files. So here in this list, I was trying to view a Smith JPEG, but it was tagged that it come out of somebody's home folder and it wasn't generated in the HTML folder originally. So it come from another location, and that's why it's broken. So we're going to look over SE Linux a little bit and discuss where that you might be having issues where SE Linux blocks you from accessing a file. And a blocked file, depending on the web browser, basically just Chrome has a picture of an icon with a line through it, meaning a broken picture. Halloween's over. I went down to the main office and was like, oh, where did all the Halloween decorations go? And then I realized it's time to put up Thanksgiving stuff. That's not what I wanted to look. That's the one I wanted to look up. So Wednesday, we're going to be getting into, we're going to double check our Azure Update Manager to see the logs, the history of updating, if it's ever able to update our site. I'm going to play with the Security Enhanced Linux. We'll be using that WinSCP program, so I hope that you are now getting that WinSCP installed onto your computer. And we're going to upload 2 images. So you need to have 2 images that you want to upload to your website, preferably kind of small images just to play with. We're going to use a move and a copy command. And we're going to deal with the SE Linux and look at how to reset attributes and stuff on the files. After that, we'll start looking at asymmetric encryption. But for the Wednesday class to fully work, your Nginx server needs to be working. Preferably your certbot is working too, but it doesn't have to be working. But Nginx, you need to be able to at least view the website. Okay, so any questions?